Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you would have died for them, only to realize they almost made sure you did? That's how my story should have ended. Broken body at the bottom of a cliff, washed away by a river no one would think to search. But I survived. And when I opened my eyes that morning, drenched, bruised, barely breathing, the first thing I saw was him. Not my husband. No, he'd already left me to die. The man standing over me was Dung. If I believed in fate, I'd say it was written. But this was survival. And maybe, just maybe, a second chance at justice. Dung had been a local guide for one of the day trek routes near Sapa. We met briefly earlier that week when my husband and I asked for directions to a hidden trail. He was the one who warned me, "Too steep, don't go without a local." But my husband insisted. "We'll be fine," he had said, pulling me along with that reassuring smile I used to believe in. Turns out, Dung had followed us. Something in his gut told him not to trust the man holding my hand. When he pulled me out of the river, I was unconscious. For hours, maybe longer. But when I finally woke up in a modest room above his aunt's tea house, I wasn't afraid. I was quiet, alert. Dung sat beside me with a cup of gung honey tea and said simply, "I saw him walk away. You didn't fall." We didn't speak for a long time after that. Words felt too small, too fragile, but that silence became a pact. He didn't just save me. He saw me, and he believed me, before I even said a word. That night, while I trembled under a borrowed blanket, I told him everything. From the sudden proposal to the life insurance papers I signed without reading, to the little moments I ignored, the ones that, in hindsight, screamed danger. And then I showed him the video. It was short, just over a minute. A blurred corner of a hallway in a mountain lodge. But the voices were clear. Him, "She signed the policy 2 weeks ago, double indemnity clause. If it happens abroad, it's clean." Her, "So we leave tomorrow?" Him quietly, "She trusts me like a puppy. She won't even see it coming." I expected Dung to react with shock or disgust, but instead, he nodded slowly, like he'd seen shadows like this before. "She needs to think you're dead," he said. "That's your power now." And that was how the plan began. The first step was silence. I didn't use my name, my phone, or my passport. Dung helped me create a fake ID, a tourist alias, my Trin, and registered me as a worker in his aunt's tea farm. I wore a conical hat, clipped herbs in the early morning, and learned how to disappear in plain sight. I wrote an email to Anya, my best friend from university, now a corporate lawyer, from an encrypted account. I told her I was safe, not to alert anyone, and that I'd send more details soon. I needed her legal expertise, but more than that, I needed someone who believed me in the world I left behind. Then I waited. The news trickled in slowly. On the third day, Dung showed me a headline from an English-language Vietnamese blog. "Dutch tourist presumed dead after hiking accident in Sapa." The article mentioned a search effort, but no body had been found. Police assumed I'd drowned. My name was in the title, and my husband had already given a statement. Dung and I looked at each other and said nothing, because this was exactly what we needed. He thought I was gone. The next step was to listen. I couldn't go home yet, but I needed access to my accounts. With Anya's help, we recovered access to my email, synced old data from the cloud, and crucially, pulled metadata from my old phone. Some files had been auto-backed up without my knowledge. Text logs, recorded audio memos, even screenshots. I must have taken subconsciously during those sleepless nights when I began to suspect something was wrong. Piece by piece, the puzzle formed. There were flagged emails about life insurance plans with exotic clauses, a notification from a financial service confirming a beneficiary change, all legal, all digital, all subtle, and a message chain with her. His assistant, his business partner, the woman who always laughed too loud and touched his arm a bit too often. She wasn't just in on it, she was the engine behind it. "I don't want revenge," I said one night while Doom grilled sweet potatoes by the fire. "I want truth. I want them to see what they've done." He smiled gently and said, "That's more dangerous than revenge." He was right, because I didn't want to hurt them the way they tried to hurt me. I wanted something deeper, something colder. I wanted them to destroy themselves. So I began writing, not letters, but reports. A timeline of events annotated with evidence. Anya helped me set up secure cloud storage. Everything was duplicated. One in the Netherlands, one in Vietnam, one in an anonymous digital locker. If anything happened to me, Again, those files would not disappear. And every night, before bed, Dung and I would sit on the balcony, looking down at the misty valley, and rehearse possibilities. What if he goes to the police? Then we release the emails. What if he runs? Then we follow. We didn't know how this story would end, but I knew it wouldn't end the way he planned, because I was no longer the woman who followed him into the fog, trusting every word. I was the one writing the next chapter. And he had no idea I was alive to write it. I returned home on a Thursday, not to the life I once knew, not to the arms that once held me, but to the shell of a house that now belonged to someone else. A ghost named me, someone they thought had died. My hands shook as I turned the spare key I had hidden behind the garden lantern. The gate creaked open, and everything inside was still exactly as I remembered, and yet completely different. The bougainvillea I used to trim with care had wilted. The porch light was broken. The air smelled stale, like a secret no one had dared to breathe in. He hadn't expected me back. He thought I was buried under river rocks in memory. Good. I stepped inside with quiet feet, like a thief in my own story. My plan was clear: stay unseen, gather evidence, and strike when the time was right. Dung had helped me map out every detail. He was still in Sapa, keeping our tracks cold, but we spoke every night, and Anya had secured a VPN route that masked my location. I was home, but only in body. The house whispered betrayal. He wasn't here. Of course he wasn't. The bedroom had been hastily used and abandoned. The sheets were crumpled in a way that screamed someone else had been sleeping here, but not recently. There was lipstick on a teacup, the coral shade she always wore. Her scent lingered faintly on the silk robe I found tossed over the back of the chair. But the closet told the truth. Half empty. He had moved out, or maybe just relocated temporarily, with her, and he had left behind traces, sloppy ones. I found receipts for hotel stays tucked inside his drawer, all dated after the day I died. One in particular caught my eye: a 5-star hotel suite in Amsterdam, booked for 2 weeks. And the name on the reservation? No initials. No secrecy. No shame. They weren't hiding. Why would they? They thought the only witness was at the bottom of a gorge. The next few days passed like a slow-burning fever. I didn't sleep in the bed. I made a cot in the small laundry room and kept the lights off most of the time. The house still had running electricity, though half the switches buzzed with neglect. I dressed in dark clothes and kept the curtains drawn. Anya called me every morning at 7 a.m., sharp. We didn't talk about feelings, only facts. She was helping me recover my access to shared accounts, insurance, investments, even the voice-activated smart system he had installed last year. Little by little, she taught me how to slip inside my own life without alerting him. We changed one password at a time. He wouldn't notice, not yet. And while she worked on the legal and digital side, I focused on the house. Every drawer he had touched, every tablet he had synced, every document, receipt, voice memo, shared calendar. I knew where he kept the backups. He never believed in deleting anything. And that was his weakness. 3 days after my return, I found it. A voice recording. It was buried inside a folder named Trip Notes, synced to our old shared home cloud. He had probably forgotten it was even there. It started with ambient noise, maybe from a hotel, and then their voices came in, muffled but unmistakably clear. Him. She didn't even scream. Just slipped. It was almost too easy. Her, laughing softly. Don't say that. What if someone hears? Him. There's no one left to hear. Not anymore. He paused. A sigh. I almost feel sorry for her, almost. Well, I don't. She was always a shadow, a placeholder. You deserve better. That one sentence. She was always a shadow. It hit me harder than the rocks ever did. I wasn't just betrayed. I had been erased. But I was back, and shadows know how to watch without being seen. So I set up my own system. I planted a motion-activated camera near the gate, synced to an app that Anya built for me. I left my car parked at the supermarket a few blocks away. I started walking through the neighborhood with a headscarf and glasses, just another local woman passing through. Every night, I scanned their social media accounts. They were bold. He even posted a picture, a quiet evening getaway with a wine glass and her hand in the frame. I zoomed in, same manicure, same coral lipstick. They were careless in their new happiness, and I used every detail. Then on the 5th day, they came back. I heard the car before I saw it, The sound of tires on gravel. A pause. 2 doors slamming shut. I didn't panic. I moved to the back room and activated the camera. From the app, I watched them enter. Laughing, hands full of luggage. He tossed his jacket on the couch. She kicked off her heels near the stairs. Home, sweet home, for them. I let them settle in. I let them get comfortable. And when the house went quiet that night, I slipped into the crawlspace beneath the stairs, a narrow hollow lined with old coats and winter boots. I didn't sleep. I listened. They talked in soft tones, whispered about the future, about renovations, about selling the house, about her moving in permanently. I bit my knuckle to keep from gasping. This house, my house, was no longer mine in their minds. I was the past, an empty folder, a deleted file. But I was right here in the dark, watching, waiting. The next day, he left for a meeting. She stayed behind. That was my moment. I moved quickly, slipped into the hallway, careful not to make a sound. I reached the study and connected my hard drive to the desktop. Files transferred in seconds, backups of conversations, copies of audio, legal paperwork. And then I found something unexpected. A folder labeled Legacy Plan. Inside was a will, a financial strategy, notes on joint accounts, insurance claims, funeral arrangements, mine. The date on the draft? 2 months before the trip. He had been planning this for months. That broke something in me. But it also hardened something else. I copied every single file. I saved them to 3 places. One to Anya, one to a burner drive I kept on me at all times, and one to an anonymous Dropbox shared with a Dutch journalist Anya trusted. It wasn't just revenge now. It was exposure. And when I left that room, I didn't look back. That night, she was alone in the kitchen, humming to herself, sipping wine. I watched her from the hallway mirror, hidden behind the pantry door. I memorized her rhythm, the way she twirled her hair, the songs she hummed, the texts she typed. She had no idea I was breathing just meters away. I could have revealed myself, but I wasn't ready. Not yet. Justice isn't loud. It's patient, and by the time it arrives, it doesn't knock. It walks through the front door, holding every truth like a blade. That night, Dung's call came through just as I was settling into the crawl space. His voice was calm but edged with urgency. "Something's off," he said. "I've been monitoring their accounts, and it looks like he's planning to vanish. There's a flight booked tomorrow morning under an alias. Last minute." I pinched the bridge of my nose. This was exactly the kind of move I feared. Running away, leaving everything behind, but not before trying to erase every trace of his crimes. "We need to force the hand," I whispered. "We can't let him disappear without consequences." We spent the next few hours coordinating a plan. Anya was pulling strings with the journalist, ensuring the files I sent would reach the right hands quickly. Dung had contacts in law enforcement ready to move once the investigation began. And I had to confront him, face to face. The idea terrified me, but I knew it was the only way to push this over the edge. The morning sun hadn't risen yet when I slipped out of the house and took the bus to the airport area. The plan was simple. Wait for him near the terminal, catch him before he boarded. I wore a long coat and sunglasses, my headscarf tightly wrapped. I felt exposed, a hunted woman disguised as a ghost, and then I saw him. He was tall, hands deep in pockets, pacing near the check-in desks. The familiar tightness in his jaw, the way he glanced over his shoulder, he was nervous, no doubt. But he looked nothing like the man who had betrayed me, more like a desperate fugitive. I approached slowly, heart pounding. "Hello, stranger," I said, voice low but clear. He froze. His eyes darted around, searching for witnesses, before finally locking on me. "You're alive," he stammered. "Not just alive," I replied, stepping closer. "I'm here to finish this." He laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "You don't know what you're doing," he said. "This will destroy everything." "Maybe it should," I answered. "Maybe it's time someone did." From my coat pocket, I pulled out a small device, the hard drive loaded with all the evidence. His face paled. "You won't get away," I said. "Not this time." Before he could respond, the airport security approached, alerted by a staff member who saw us arguing. I stepped back, blending into the crowd while he was stopped and questioned. That was my cue. I slipped away, heart hammering, knowing I had shaken the cage, but not yet freed the lion inside. That evening, back home, the news broke. The journalist's expose went live. Headlines screamed about the insurance scheme and deadly betrayal. The story went viral overnight. Police confirmed an ongoing investigation, and rumors spread that the man had fled the country. But when I called Dung the next morning, his voice was tense. "He's gone," he said. "No forwarding address. No flight records under his name, just fake ones." I sank into the chair, feeling the weight of months of pain and planning crashing down in an instant. The man who tried to kill me was a ghost once again. But this time I wasn't afraid, because I had prepared for this moment. The evidence was out. The world was watching. And I had allies, people who believed in the truth. The battle was far from over. But I was still here, stronger than ever. The days after his disappearance were a strange blend of relief and lingering fear. The house, once a place of warmth and shared memories, now felt like neutral ground, a battleground where shadows moved unseen but never without consequence. Dung was with me almost every step of the way. He had flown back quietly, insisting on being by my side, not just as a friend, but as a guardian of this fragile new chapter. Together, we sifted through the aftermath, phone calls to the police, meetings with lawyers, conversations with journalists hungry for the full story. The investigation had officially begun, though the path ahead was murky. I often caught myself staring at the empty spaces he left behind. His side of the bed, the office chair he abandoned in haste, his favorite coffee mug cracked and forgotten on the kitchen counter. But there was no bitterness in those moments, only clarity. The man who had promised love but planned betrayal was gone. What remained was a test of resilience, a quiet promise to myself that I would reclaim my life piece by piece. One evening, as I sat with Dung on the porch, the night air cool against my skin, he reached out and took my hand. "You're stronger than you think," he said quietly. "This isn't just about revenge. It's about you finding your peace." I nodded, squeezing his hand in return. For the first time in months, I felt something resembling hope. The police followed every lead we provided. The evidence we collected painted a damning picture: financial fraud, attempted murder, conspiracy with the woman he'd left behind. Their statements were a web of deceit, and yet the law required patience and proof beyond doubt. Meanwhile, I began attending therapy sessions. Talking through the trauma was harder than I expected. Each detail peeled back layers of pain, but also revealed the strength hidden beneath. My therapist helped me see that survival was not just about escaping danger, but about reclaiming identity. Friends reached out, some who had doubted me before. Their messages filled the silent spaces, reminders that I was not alone. Then, just as the investigation gained traction, the unexpected happened. One rainy afternoon, a letter arrived, postmarked from an unknown city. The envelope was plain, the handwriting familiar yet distorted. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a message written in his unmistakable scrawl: "You win this round. But beware, the truth is never as simple as it seems. Watch your back." No signature, no return address, a warning, or a threat. I showed the letter to Dung. He frowned, then looked at me steadily. "We're not done," he said, "not by a long shot." That night, sleep escaped me. I sat by the window, watching the rain trace silent paths down the glass. The house no longer felt like a refuge, but a fortress. Every creak and whisper became a reminder that the past still lingered, waiting for an opening. But I was ready. I wasn't the woman who once believed in blind trust. I was a survivor, a fighter. And no matter where he was, no matter how far he ran, the truth was on my side. The investigation would continue. The evidence was too strong, and the world had seen his face, not as a victim, but as a villain. As dawn broke, casting a soft glow over the garden, I took a deep breath. This was my story now, not one of fear or betrayal, but of courage, resilience, and the quiet power of truth. And whatever came next, I would face it head on, because I had finally reclaimed my life.